Have you ever just, stopped and thought about how it can just spread like wildfire through a community, and how easily misinformation gets a foothold, twisting things until suddenly neighbors are suspicious of each other. Everyone's caught up in something that just doesn't make any logical sense.
It's a pattern, isn't it? You see it again and again through history.
Exactly. And it feels disturbingly relevant even now in our own world, right? With how fast narratives shift online and figuring out what's true can be really tricky.
Definitely.
So today we're diving deep. We're going into a real masterpiece that looks right at these themes, these timeless, kind of unsettling ideas. We're talking about Arthur Miller's incredible play, The Crucible.
That's exactly what we're doing. Our mission here is to really pull out the key insights from, well, a whole lot of great source material on Miller's plays. Just such a powerful piece of work.
Yeah.
We'll cover, the basics of the plot, dig into the characters, they're so complex, and then really get into the deeper meanings, the allegory.
And why it still hits home today.
Absolutely. Its enduring relevance is kind of undeniable. We want to basically unearth the core of this complex story, make it super accessible, but also, really impactful for you listening.
And that for you part is key. Think of this deep dive as like your shortcut to really getting The Crucible. We'll guide you through all the different layers, help you build a solid understanding.
Without getting totally bogged down.
Right. We want you to appreciate the nuances, the details, but not feel overwhelmed. And honestly, there are some genuinely fascinating bits, some connections you might not expect, and those real aha moments.
Those are the best.
They really are. So let's get into it. Let's really unpack this story and what it tells us. Segment 1, the spark of hysteria and the Puritan undercurrents. Okay, so where does this whole thing start? It's not in some grand hall or anything.
Sure.
We begin in Salem, Massachusetts. The year is 1692. And the community is Puritan. Very strict, very devout.
It's extremely rigid, yeah.
And the spark, the actual event that kicks everything off, it seems almost small. At first, anyway. It's this group of young girls. And the key one is Reverend Parris's niece, Abigail Williams. Parris himself catches them dancing in the woods, which is absolutely forbidden. And his slave from Barbados, Tituba, is with them. Our sources really point to this moment, this forbidden pleasure, as the catalyst, the secret act that blows up into public chaos.
It's amazing how fast it spirals, isn't it? That one seemingly small, okay, maybe not small in their context, but private,
Right.
But it just explodes. The sources show it escalates super quickly into accusations of witchcraft. Because the girls, Abigail and the others, they're caught doing something seriously wrong dancing, maybe trying to conjure spirits.
Big trouble in that society.
Huge trouble. So they're terrified of the punishment, absolutely terrified. And what do? They deflect. They claim they were bewitched, forced into it by, dark powers.
A classic move, really. Blame someone else.
Exactly. But what's really crucial right from the get-go is Reverend Parris. His main concern, almost immediately, isn't necessarily the truth or even the girls' souls. It's his reputation.
Yeah.
As the town minister, his standing is everything. And the sources mention he's kind of paranoid about it, maybe a little power-hungry too.
Nuggets.
Apparently, some townspeople already felt he cared more about fancy things like golden candlesticks than, actually taking care of his congregation spiritually.
So that sets him up.
Yeah, it really foreshadows his actions later on. He's looking out for himself mostly, not really about righteousness.
It's pretty chilling, though, how those first whispers, just a few girls trying to save their own skin, turn into, well, the seeds of total hysteria. It goes from those initial, maybe panicked confessions to just full-blown chaos. Once the official witch trials start, the whole town is just sucked in. It makes you think, how fast does suspicion become absolute certainty?
Yeah.
How does it turn neighbor against neighbor like that? It feels like the whole social fabric just rips apart.
Well, that's exactly what the sources emphasize. Hysteria isn't just like a backdrop in The Crucible. It is the plot, in a way. It's this living, breathing thing, this chaos driven purely by fear.
Spreading like a plague.
Exactly. And it just overrides everything: reason, morality, common sense. People stop thinking for themselves. This collective panic takes over. And suddenly, just being suspicious is enough. An accusation becomes a conviction.
It's like a psychological contagion.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a social illness. The play shows so clearly how individual fears and anxieties can just snowball into this powerful, irrational mob mentality.
And this wasn't happening in just any old town, right? This firestorm erupts in Salem, this very specific, strict Puritan place.
Yeah.
How much did that environment, that religious dogma and the intense pressure to conform, how much did that feed into it?
Oh, massively. You absolutely have to understand the context. The play is based on the real Salem witch trials of 1692. Real people were accused, real people were executed.
It's historical fiction, but rooted in fact.
Right. And that's setting this rigid Puritan world where religion was the law, where any deviation was seen as dangerous, possibly evil, where they genuinely believed the devil was a real active force trying to undermine them.
That fear was palpable.
Absolutely. It made the community incredibly vulnerable to manipulation, to paranoia. They saw God's hand in good things, so it was easy to see the devil's hand in anything bad or unusual. Any personal failing, any odd behavior could suddenly look like demonic influence. It created this climate of constant suspicion.
Okay, before we dive headfirst into the trials themselves, let's get a better handle on the main players here. Who are the key figures we need to keep an eye on? Their motivations, their conflicts, that's what drives this whole thing.
Definitely. Let's start with Abigail Williams. Our sources are pretty clear. She's the main antagonist. She's Paris's niece, an orphan, and she's described as having this amazing capacity for dissembling. Basically, she's a really good liar.
And she has a motive, right?
Oh, yeah. A big one. She had an affair with John Proctor, and she wants revenge on his wife, Elizabeth. So her talent for lying, combined with this very personal grudge, it's explosive.
She weaponizes the situation.
Totally. She doesn't just tap into the town's fears, she actively fans the flames. She manipulates the other girls, gets them to go along with these stories about seeing people with the devil. It's all calculated to serve her own agenda, especially getting rid of Elizabeth. She's this terrifying mix of personal vengeance and exploiting public fear.
And then there's John Proctor. He seems like the complete opposite in many ways.
He really is. He's presented as this down-to-earth farmer, hardworking, generally respected, maybe in his 40s. But he's got this huge internal conflict.
The affair with Abigail.
Exactly. That past mistake is eating away at him. And what's compelling is, the sources say he knows Abigail is lying. Right from the start, he sees through her act.
But he doesn't immediately call her out.
No. And that hesitation is key. It comes back to his guilt, his shame about the affair. He doesn't want it to come out. So his past actions kind of trap him, making it harder for him to fight for the truth later. His struggle is really about finding redemption, finding his integrity again. It's kind of the heart of the play.
And Elizabeth Proctor, his wife, what's her role in all this?
Elizabeth adds another really important layer. She's shown as a good woman, morally upright, a good Christian, but she's also dealing with the fallout from John's affair. Her journey involves this incredible capacity for forgiveness.
Even after Abigail accuses her.
Yeah, her arrest for witchcraft, which is purely Abigail's doing, puts immense strain on her relationship with John. But ultimately, her quiet strength, her support for him, and that eventual forgiveness are crucial for John's own journey.
There's more to her, though, some underlying motivation.
The sources suggest she carries this quiet guilt, actually. She blames herself, partly, for being maybe too cold towards John, which might have contributed to the affair. This makes her fiercely protective of him, even when it leads to, well, a devastating decision later on. It's a quiet sacrifice.
Okay, we also need to talk about Reverend Hale. He comes in as the expert, right? The witch hunter.
Right, he's brought into Salem because he's supposedly an expert on witchcraft, but here's the deep irony the sources point out. There weren't any actual witches in Salem, historically speaking.
So his expertise is useless.
Or worse. It's fundamentally misguided. He comes in very confident, very sure of his knowledge, his ability to root out evil. It's almost like intellectual pride. But that certainty gets completely shattered as he sees what's really happening. He has to confront the fact that his knowledge might be contributing to injustice. It's a painful journey for him.
And the man in charge of the legal proceedings? Judge Danforth.
Judge Danforth. He's the deputy governor, the main judge presiding over the trials. And he's characterized by this absolute unwavering belief in the court's righteousness.
Sounds dangerous.
It is, because this belief blinds him completely. He can't see the injustice, the lies unfolding right in front of him. The sources describe him as excessively zealous, like he truly believes he's on a holy crusade against witchcraft.
So his judgment is clouded.
Totally clouded. He represents the danger of absolute authority without compassion, without critical thinking. He becomes the symbol of how justice itself can become corrupted by fanaticism and fear. Segment 2, the courtroom's grip and the crucible of characters.
Okay, so we've set the scene, introduced the key players. Now the accusations really start to fly, and things escalate fast. Abigail, sensing her power, really goes for it, doesn't she?
Oh, absolutely. She doesn't just stick to general accusations. She uses her influence, her sway over the other girls, and terrifyingly over the court to target Elizabeth Proctor directly.
Making it personal.
Exactly. It moves from this general town hysteria to a very specific, calculated act of vengeance. She takes their private history, that conflict over John, and drags it right into the courtroom, into this life-or-death arena. It's a chilling move.
And the court just buys it.
Disturbingly, yes. The sources make it clear that Judge Danforth and the others are completely taken in by the girls' performances. They're fainting, pointing, screaming about spirits.
It's all an act, but they believe it.
They seem to, or they want to. Fear and suspicion just explode. It really does become like a wildfire, turning neighbor against neighbor. The devil feels incredibly real to them in that courtroom.
And then there's that Poffit incident. That really shows how twisted things got.
Right, the poppet with a needle. It's just a little doll that Mary Warren, the proctor servant, made for Elizabeth while sitting in court. But Abigail sees her chance. She sticks a needle in her own belly later and claims Elizabeth's spirit did it, using the doll as a kind of voodoo doll.
And they use that as evidence.
As crucial evidence. It perfectly shows the absurdity. An innocent gift becomes proof of witchcraft. It shows how desperate the court is for anything that looks like proof, no matter how flimsy, to back up their assumptions.
Meanwhile, the girls just keep going with this charade, seeing spirits, accusing more people. How does the court stay so blind?
It's fascinating, isn't it? They're so locked into their worldview, their belief in their divine mission, and probably, honestly, afraid of admitting they might be wrong, that they just can't see it. Or maybe they choose not to.
They don't want to undermine their own authority.
Exactly. Admitting the girls are frauds would mean admitting the entire proceeding is a sham, that they've already condemned innocent people. It's like confirmation bias on a terrifying scale.
But this blindness is what starts to shake Reverend Hale.
Precisely. This is where Hale's big transformation happens. He came in so confident, remember, believing in the process. But seeing this, seeing good, respected people like Rebecca Nurse accused, seeing the obvious manipulation, hearing Proctor's pleas, it starts to eat away at him.
His certainty cracks.
Completely. He starts to doubt. He starts to see the injustice. His relationship with the court shifts dramatically. He goes from being this enthusiastic supporter to a disillusioned critic.
He realizes he made a mistake.
A terrible one. He confronts his own pride, his flawed knowledge, and sees the horrific results. He actually starts trying to undo the damage, pleading with the accused to confess, not because he believes they're guilty anymore, but just to save their lives from this out-of-control court.
It's tragic, really.
It is. And, speaking of manipulation, it's interesting. Both Abigail and Tituba use it to gain power, right? Even though they're worlds apart socially. Abigail the accuser, Tituba the enslaved scapegoat. They both figure out how to play on the community's fears. It says something unsettling about human nature, maybe.
Wow, yeah. Okay, so this brings us to John Proctor's big moment. His desperate attempt to stop Abigail.
This is huge. It's probably the climax of the play, emotionally. He realizes the only way to potentially break Abigail's hold is to expose her true motive, her reason for wanting Elizabeth dead.
Which means revealing the affair.
Exactly. He makes this agonizing choice to confess his adultery publicly, in front of Judge Danforth, the whole court. The sources call it a major emotional turning point.
He sacrifices his own name, his reputation.
Everything. He throws away his good name, something incredibly valuable in that society, all in a desperate attempt to discredit Abigail and save his wife. Remember how he hesitated earlier because of his guilt?
Yeah.
Now, that same guilt forces his hand in the opposite direction. He has to reveal his sin to fight for the truth. He basically strips himself bare in the courtroom.
And then Elizabeth is brought in. Oh, this part is just gut-wrenching. The irony is almost too much.
It's devastating. They bring Elizabeth in to confirm John's story, to corroborate his confession of adultery. But crucially, she doesn't know he has already confessed.
So she thinks she's protecting him.
Yes. She does what she thinks is the loving, loyal thing. To protect his reputation, his name, she lies. She denies the affair.
And in doing so, she condemns him.
Yeah.
And herself.
Pretty much seals their fate. It's such a controversial moment, as the sources say. People debate it endlessly. Was it right? Was it wrong? It raises huge questions about truth, loyalty, love.
But it's also a moment of connection between them, isn't it? Despite everything.
Absolutely. In that terrible moment, even with the disastrous outcome of her lie, there's this profound sense of reconciliation. After all the tension, the distance caused by the affair, her lie comes from a place of deep love and protection. It highlights how forgiveness and love can still exist, even bloom, under the absolute worst circumstances imaginable.
It's not just about the Proctors and Abigail, though. The play uses other characters to show how this hysteria affects everyone, right?
Definitely. The supporting characters are crucial for showing the wider impact. They represent different responses to the crisis resistance, conformity, fear.
Like Mary Warren, the Proctor servant.
Yeah, Mary Warren, she's caught in the middle. She's one of the accusing girls, but she also works for the Proctors and knows deep down that it's wrong. She's described as a pawn in the hysteria.
She tries to tell the truth at one point, doesn't she?
She does, briefly, under pressure from Proctor, but then the other girls, led by Abigail, turn on her in court, pretending Mary is bewitching them. And the pressure is just too much. She caves.
She accuses Proctor.
Yes, she completely breaks and accuses Proctor of being the devil's man to save herself. Her character is this tragic example of how hard it is to stand against the group, especially when you're scared. She shows that fragility, that tendency towards self-preservation over courage.
But then you have someone like Giles Corey. He's the opposite.
Totally. Giles Corey is this stubborn, elderly farmer known for being argumentative, but also incredibly courageous. He sees the corruption, especially Putnam using the accusations to grab land.
And he refuses to play their game.
He refuses completely. He won't name the person who told him about Putnam because he knows that person will be targeted. And when he himself is accused, he refuses to plead guilty or not guilty, because if he did, his property would be forfeited and his sons wouldn't inherit.
So they press him?
Yes, it's horrific. They pile stones on his chest to force a plea, but he won't give in. His famous last words are just, "More weight." He dies, but he dies defiant, protecting his family's inheritance and his own integrity. He and Proctor share that same spirit of resistance against the court's tyranny. He's pure grit.
Wow. And Rebecca Nurse. Her fate seems particularly senseless.
It really underscores the tragedy. Rebecca Nurse is presented as the embodiment of goodness, a paragon of virtue, deeply religious, universally respected, an elderly matriarch.
So why is she accused?
Petty grudges, likely. The Putnams had disputes with the Nurse family. Her arrest and execution are meant to show just how far the madness has gone. If someone like Rebecca Nurse can be condemned, anyone can. Her calm dignity, her unwavering faith, even as she's led to the gallows, stands in such stark contrast to the chaos. She's a symbol of true piety being destroyed by fanaticism.
And finally, Tituba. Back to the beginning, in a way.
Tituba, Reverend Paris's slave from Barbados. She's the first one accused, the first one pressured into confessing.
Why her?
Because she's the easiest target. She's an outsider, enslaved from a different culture. She's the perfect scapegoat. Her confession, which she makes under threat of beating and death, is what gives the initial accusations a veneer of legitimacy. It validates the fears and kicks off the whole chain reaction. Her situation really highlights the ugly racial and social prejudices simmering beneath the surface in Salem. She's marginalized, vulnerable, and the first one sacrificed. Segment 3. Deeper meanings, timeless relevance, and lasting echoes.
So, we reach the end game. John Proctor is in prison, condemned, and the day he's scheduled to hang is getting closer. This is it, isn't it? His final test.
This is the absolute crucible for him. The sources describe this intense internal battle he's fighting. Does he confess to witchcraft, tell a lie, but save his life? Or does he refuse to confess, maintain his integrity, his good name, but die?
It's an impossible choice.
Truly agonizing. And Elizabeth, who's also in prison but pregnant, she comes to him, and she doesn't tell him what to do exactly, but she urges him towards life. She wants him to live.
But his name, that becomes everything to him, right?
Yes. His honor, his sense of self, his redemption. He can't bear the thought of his name being used to justify the lies, to condemn others. So he actually does decide to confess initially. The sources say he hopes it might save him, maybe even help others somehow.
But there's a catch.
There is. They want him to sign the confession. And they want to nail it to the church door for everyone to see. Proof that even John Proctor bowed to the court. And they want him to name names, implicate others like Rebecca Nurse and Martha Corey.
And he won't do it.
He cannot do it. He refuses to blacken the names of other innocent people to save himself. He realizes that confessing, under these terms, means selling his soul completely. This is what the sources called the tragic hero's defining moment.
And that's when he tears up the paper.
Yes. That powerful, iconic act of defiance, he rips his signed confession to shreds. He chooses death, but death with his integrity, his name intact. It's just incredibly powerful.
It sends shivers down your spine every time.
It really does. And the sources describe this as a tragic victory. He dies, physically, but morally, spiritually, he wins. His act shows the enduring power of truth, the strength of the human spirit against overwhelming pressure. It forces you, the listener, to ask that huge question. What's worth more, life itself, or living that life with integrity?
That quote sums it up perfectly. I have given you my soul, leave me my name.
Exactly. It's not just vanity. It's about preserving the last shred of his true self in a world gone mad, a system trying to crush individuality. He chooses his inner truth over a lie, even if it costs him everything. He becomes a martyr for truth.
Okay. Wow. So after going through all that, this intense story,
Yeah.
what does this all mean for us now? Why does this play still resonate so strongly? Let's unpack those enduring themes.
Well, first and foremost, The Crucible is this incredibly potent warning about mass hysteria and societal paranoia. Miller just nails how fear can spread like a virus, leading to completely irrational behavior and terrible injustice.
Like the girls not being able to hear psalms being used as proof.
Exactly. That detail is chilling. Something sacred, religious music becomes twisted into evidence of demonic influence. It shows how easily deeply held beliefs, even religious ones, can be warped into tools of oppression when fear takes over. It's a reminder of how fragile reason can be when a group gets swept up in panic.
It's also deeply about power, isn't it? And how it's abused.
Absolutely. The play is a masterclass in examining power dynamics and manipulation. It shows how people will exploit a crisis for their own ends, for revenge, like Abigail, or even for material gain.
Like the land disputes you mentioned.
Right. The sources point out those underlying land disputes, especially with Thomas Putnam using the accusations to get his hands on his neighbor's property. It adds this layer of cold, calculated greed beneath the religious fervor. It wasn't all just piety gone wrong. Sometimes it was just old-fashioned avarice wearing a holy mask. It makes the whole thing even more disturbing.
But amidst all that darkness, there is that thread of hope, that focus on integrity.
Yes, definitely. For all its darkness, The Crucible is also a powerful story about the struggle for individual integrity. John Proctor's journey is central here. He's flawed, he made mistakes, but ultimately he finds redemption through clinging to his truth.
He finds his goodness, as he puts it.
Exactly. His story highlights our capacity for courage, for standing by truth even when facing death. It shows that even in the absolute worst circumstances, the human spirit can find its moral compass and hold on to it. It's about self-forgiveness, too, in a way.
And we absolutely have to talk about the historical parallel. Miller wasn't just writing about the 1690s.
Not at all. That's maybe the most crucial layer for understanding why he wrote it when he did. Miller wrote The Crucible in the early 1950s, right in the thick of the McCarthy era, the Red Scare.
A hunt for communists in America.
Precisely. He saw direct, terrifying parallels between the Salem witch hunts and the persecution of people accused of being communists. People losing their job, their reputations ruined, lives destroyed based on flimsy evidence, forced confessions, and widespread fear.
So the play is an allegory.
A direct allegory. By setting his commentary on McCarthyism back in 1692, Miller could explore these themes: fear, abuse of power, the importance of integrity in a way that was both timeless and incredibly relevant to his own time. It showed that this kind of societal madness wasn't just a weird historical blip, it's a recurring pattern. That's why it still speaks to us so powerfully today.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. From a writing perspective, how does Miller actually do this? How does he make the play so impactful? What are the literary tools he's using?
Well, he uses a very effective, classic dramatic structure. You have the rising action, building tension relentlessly, then that intense climax, and finally the falling action, the resolution, however tragic. It creates this feeling of inevitability pulling you along.
And the dialogue is incredible.
Absolutely central. It's a dialogue-driven narrative. The language is often sparse, direct, but packed with meaning. It reveals everything: motivations, conflicts, the rising panic. The words themselves are like weapons or shields or confessions. It's incredibly efficient and powerful storytelling.
He uses symbols really effectively too, doesn't he?
Oh, definitely. The sources always mention key symbols, like the title itself, The Crucible. A crucible is for testing metals with intense heat, purifying them. The trials are the crucible for the characters, testing their moral core, revealing who they really are.
Like Proctor?
Exactly. And that puppet, The doll becomes the symbol of how innocence can be twisted into perceived guilt, how evidence can be manufactured. These symbols make the abstract themes much more concrete and memorable.
You know, what's also really interesting is that Miller doesn't spell everything out. There are things left ambiguous.
That's a great point, and part of why the play stays with you. It trusts the audience. For example, Abigail's real state of mind, does she actually believe some of her own lies by the end? Or is she purely cynical? The play doesn't definitively say.
Or the spirits the girls claim to see.
Right. Are they genuinely hallucinating due to the pressure and hysteria? Or is it all a calculated performance? Miller leaves that open, making you think about belief, perception, and the nature of mass delusion. Even the ending, while tragic for Proctor, leaves the community's future somewhat open. Is there a redemption possible for Salem? It's not neatly tied up.
And that ambiguity feeds into some really debatable scenes, right? Moments that make you think, what would I do?
Exactly. The sources often highlight these controversial moments. Elizabeth's lie, loyalty versus truth. Proctor's initial decision to confess life versus integrity. Even Reverend Hale's decision to finally denounce the court. Was it too late? Was it enough?
These aren't easy questions.
Not at all. They're designed to provoke thought, to make you grapple with complex moral choices. That's part of the play's enduring power. It doesn't offer simple answers. It forces you to engage with the dilemmas.
So thinking about the end of the story within the play and the historical reality, what's the aftermath? What's the lasting impact of the trials?
Well, the sources describe the aftermath as leaving this deep, painful scar on Salem. Eventually, things calm down. Reverend Paris, widely blamed, gets forced out. Abigail reportedly flees Salem and vanishes from history.
And the victims.
Years later, the government does formally apologize and offers financial compensation to the families of those wrongly executed or imprisoned. It's a belated, inadequate acknowledgement of the terrible injustice.
So the trials become a cautionary tale.
Absolutely. That's its ultimate legacy, as depicted in the play and in history. It's this stark, cautionary tale about how dangerous hysteria can be, how power corrupts, and why standing up for truth and justice is so vital even when it's incredibly costly. That message just echoes through the centuries. Remember that quote from Hale?
There is a prodigious fear of this court in the country.
Yeah. That line captures it perfectly. The oppressive fear created by an unchecked authority, leaving wounds that take a long, long time to heal, if they ever fully do.
A provocative thought for your reflection.
Wow. Okay. We have really covered a lot of ground today, journeying through Arthur Miller's The Crucible. Its characters, its plot, its raw emotional power. It really is a play that holds up a mirror to human nature, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It challenges you, makes you uncomfortable, and it definitely doesn't offer easy outs.
It stays with you.
For sure. And that brings us to our final thought, something for you to mull over. The Crucible really pushes us, I think, to look hard at how we respond to things today. How do we handle information, especially in this age of overload? How do we react to fear, to pressure from the group?
Yeah, in a world where narratives spread so fast, online and everywhere.
Exactly. How can the lessons from Salem, from Miller's allegory about McCarthyism, help you navigate all that? How can they help you tell the difference between what's real and what's manipulation?
And maybe find the courage to stand up for what's right, for your own integrity.
That's the core question, isn't it? Cultivating that courage, even when it feels like you're swimming against the tide. So this deep dive is really an invitation for you to keep thinking about these things, to keep exploring the power of stories like this one. They have so much to teach us about our present.